Right now, there is sound around you. Maybe it's traffic bleeding through a window, a fan humming in the corner, the faint compression of music leaking from someone else's headphones. Maybe it's just the low, almost imperceptible hiss of a world that never fully shuts up. You don't notice most of it, your brain filters it out. It has to. Because if you actually paid attention to every sound hitting your ears right now, you would not be able to function. This is not a metaphor. It is the result of millions of years of your nervous system learning what to ignore. But here's the question nobody thinks to ask. What happens when you take all of it away? Not quiet, not peaceful, total silence. The kind that does not exist anywhere in the natural world. The kind that has to be engineered. In 2004, a journalist named George Michelson Foy became obsessed with that question. He had a panic attack on the New York City subway, surrounded by a noise so thick he felt like it was crushing him. And from that moment, he spent years hunting for the quietest place on earth. What he found did not calm him. It terrified him. The place he eventually reached was an anechoic chamber. You may not have heard that term. Anechoic means without echo. These rooms are built to absorb sound the way a black hole absorbs light. The walls are covered in dense foam wedges. The floor is suspended. There is no reverb, no reflection, no ambient hum. The background noise level inside can drop below 0 decibels, which sounds impossible until you understand that 0 decibels is not silence. It is just the threshold of average human hearing. Inside an anechoic chamber, you go further than that. You go somewhere the human ear was never designed to go. Within minutes, most people begin to hear things that aren't there. Your heart. Loud. Almost disturbingly loud. The wet movement of fluid in your joints when you shift your weight. A high-pitched tone that climbs and refuses to stop. Your own breathing sounds like a machine. Some people hear a low roar they cannot identify. It is, researchers believe, the sound of blood moving through your own skull. This is not hallucination. This is what your brain actually sounds like when nothing else is covering it up. Stephen Orfield, who runs the Orfield Laboratories anechoic chamber in Minneapolis, once held a record for building the quietest room on Earth. He told reporters that no one had ever lasted longer than 45 minutes in that room alone. The silence, he said, does not feel peaceful. It feels threatening. Your brain, stripped of all external input, begins generating its own. And here is where it gets stranger. The neuroscientist David Eagleman has spent years studying what happens to the brain when sensory input drops. What his research and the research of dozens of others reveals is that your brain is not a passive receiver of information. It is a prediction machine. At every moment, it is running a model of the world. It takes incoming sound, vision, touch, smell, and it compares that data against what it expects to find. Most of the time, the world confirms the model and your brain moves on. But when the incoming data drops to nothing, the model does not turn off. It keeps running. It starts filling in the gaps. And the gaps, in total silence, become enormous. This is why sensory deprivation has been used as a form of psychological pressure for centuries. The Nazis used isolation chambers. The CIA's experiments in the 1950s and 1960s, many of them documented in the declassified MK Ultra files, explored how quickly the human mind could be destabilized by removing sensory contact with the world. The answer was faster than almost anyone expected. Within hours, not days, subjects began losing the boundary between what was real and what their own minds were constructing. Your brain, it turns out, needs the world. Not just for stimulation, for orientation, for the constant low-level confirmation that reality is real. And here is the counterintuitive twist. The same mechanism that breaks down in total silence is the one working against you in constant noise. A landmark study published in the journal Psychological Science by Gary Evans and Lorraine Maxwell found that children who grew up near a busy airport had measurably higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, than children in quieter neighborhoods. Their blood pressure was elevated, their reading scores were lower, their ability to persist at difficult tasks was reduced, and most importantly, they had learned to tune the noise out so effectively that they also tuned out information they actually needed. The brain, under constant acoustic pressure, does not relax. It braces. It narrows its attention to survive the noise, and in doing so, it becomes less capable of the wide, open attention that learning and creativity require. The World Health Organization has called noise pollution one of the most underestimated environmental threats to human health in the developed world. Not because loud sounds damage your hearing, though they do, but because chronic low-level noise keeps your nervous system in a permanent low-grade state of alert. Your ancestors did not live in silence. The savannah was full of sound. Wind, insects, birds, water, the movement of other animals. But those sounds were information. They were meaningful. Your brain evolved to listen to them the way you read words on a page, extracting signal from the environment, deciding what mattered. What your ancestors did not have was meaningless noise. Traffic is not information. The hum of an air conditioning unit is not telling you anything about the world. The compression artifacts of a streaming service playing in the background while you try to think are not signals. They are interference. And your brain cannot fully distinguish between the two kinds of sound at the level of the nervous system. It has to process all of it just in case. This is why cities are cognitively exhausting in a way that forests are not, even when both are full of sound. A study by researchers at the University of Michigan, led by Mark Berman, found that people who walked through an urban environment performed worse on attention and memory tests afterward than people who walked through a park with equivalent physical exertion. The difference was not the exercise, it was the quality of the acoustic and sensory environment. Nature sounds, even complex ones, tend to engage what psychologists call involuntary attention, the gentle, effortless noticing of interesting things that does not deplete mental resources. City sounds engage directed attention, the focused, effortful kind that runs out. And when directed attention runs out, you make worse decisions. You feel irritable without knowing why. You lose the ability to shift perspective on problems. You feel, in a word, fried. So here is where things land. Total silence is not what your brain wants. The anechoic chamber is not a destination. The nervous system that breaks down an engineered quiet is the same nervous system that breaks down an engineered noise. What it is looking for, what it has always been looking for, is meaningful sound. Signal, the rustling that might be a predator. The voice of someone it trusts. The particular quality of wind that means rain is coming. What it gets instead, for most of your waking hours, is a wall of acoustic noise that means nothing and stops for no one. The journalist George Michelson Foy, after his time in the quietest rooms in the noisiest cities, eventually arrived at a different question than the one he started with. He stopped asking where silence was, and started asking why he needed it. What he found was that the hunger for quiet was not a preference. It was a biological signal, the same kind your ancestors felt when they needed food or water or rest. Your brain is trying to tell you something. It has been trying to tell you for a long time. But there is so much noise that you cannot quite make out what it is saying. Tonight, when you finally turn everything off, when the last screen goes dark and the last notification dies and the room gets as quiet as it is going to get, listen, not to the silence, to what the silence lets through. Your brain has been waiting for exactly this moment. It has a great deal to say. And right now, there is sound around you and it is drowning all of it out.